So, what drew you to Homeboy? I mean, you're a CEO, you're at a successful company, a Fortune 200 or 500, I'm not sure. You're at the top of the game, and somehow you make a decision to go to Homeboy. And how did that all happen?
I've thought a lot about that. I'll give you the facts how it happened, but as friends have told me, it's more by providence than anything else, right? And but back to my corporate career, I love my corporate job. Right? We did really well. In fact, even today, like I've been a Homeboy 12 years now. I do lots of talks on behalf of Homeboy, and oftentimes, in my talk, I would say I'm a committed capitalist. That I really do believe well-run companies are good for our society, and so to me, businesses are helping create jobs and quality jobs for people and provide structure. But while I love the corporate world, I'm good at business, and like I started as a young manager, and I worked my way all the way up to the top, and through what I thought through my own merit and hard work, I got there. Right, I lived the American dream. We can talk about this a little bit later, but I realized that's not a dream for everybody that is attainable. And so,
Hmm.
all along the way, I love the business world, and I think capitalism is good for our society, but there's something a little bit misaligned in our capital markets. That there's always shareholder value is on top of employees and valuing employees. And look, well-run companies keep those things in balance, but there's always a time when push comes to shove that it's out of balance and employees are left on the side. And I thought there's got to be a different way to help people
Yeah.
run companies so that people can be equal value. And that was always nagging at me. And so, look, I worked at Aramark Corporation, very successful, it was privately owned. Then we went public, and then we were privately owned by private equity again, which means I was able to go through a couple of those transactions. And so then at the end of those last 4 years, I have these golden handcuffs on cuff, and I can do something different. So in many ways, while
Hmm.
I love the business world, I had enough of the corporate world. And those corporate executives, you have a certain shelf life anyway. All right, so I left the corporate world, and I thought I would, not work again, but work with some private equity companies to buy businesses, and I sit on the board and do that type of second chapter in my career. But along the way, a friend of mine asked me to have lunch at the Homegirl Cafe, and this friend, he's my friend because we're on the board of Salvation Army of Los Angeles together. And so when he knew I left my corporate job, he invited me to lunch. And I never really knew, although I lived in Los Angeles area, I didn't know that much about Homeboy. And so I had lunch. I'm sitting in our Homegirl Cafe, and we're having a good lunch. And I'm looking around and I'm observing the workers. And I'm thinking, wow, looks like a pretty good workforce. They're heads down, focused on their job, interacting with customers, and working hard. Good workforce. And back in my for-profit days, I bought 40 companies over 8 years and sold 5. So you develop a little bit of skill looking at a
Wow.
workforce, if that matches up. And I'm seeing this is a pretty good workforce. I'm also realizing I would have never hired any of those people in my for-profit job because they have tattoos on their face, they have felonies, and I would have never hired them. And so it's almost like it challenged me right away. It's like, oh, you think you're a hot shot business person, yet there's this population out there that you know nothing about and is a part of the workforce. And so when my friend asked me to get involved, I had time on my hands. I didn't want to be a board member any longer. I wanted to volunteer. I wanted to see if I could put my business skills to use in a different way. So I started volunteering. Homeboy has social enterprise businesses, and so really they needed an old guy with gray hair to help out. And I started to volunteer, and look, the values matched up. That in the context of a job, people are dramatically changing their life, and so that met what I thought was good about business. Homeboy does that, and I soon came to learn Homeboy does more than that. It helps provide healing. And so a couple months later, when Father Greg asked me to come on as their first CEO, I didn't think I wanted to work again, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity to be in Father Greg's orbit. And so I said yes. And let me say this one more thing. And I came into that role with all the hubris of a CEO, corporate CEO. I thought, I'll do this for 6 months to a year. I'll help fix them up, and then I'll move on and do something else. And here I am almost 12 years later, still loving what I do and feeling like I've learned so much. And it's been I'm so grateful, the blessed chapter of my my whole career.